This evening we're visiting in the Roslyn Museum, where we're going to talk to Gordon German, who is president of the Roslyn Historical Museum Association. We've come up here because the museum has just very recently acquired a couple of bronze plaques. They're hanging now in the museum, and we'll read one of them. It says, "In loving memory of Reverend Henry Irwin, first rector of St. George's Church, Roslyn, affectionately known as Father Pat, whose life was unselfishly devoted to the welfare of his fellow men, irrespective of creed or class. His house was known to all the vagrant train. He chid their wanderings and relieved their pain." This plaque, I might say, is about a foot and a half long and a good foot wide. It's a brass color with the black writing that we have just read to you deeply etched or engraved into it. Well now, Gordon, I wonder if you could tell me where these plaques came from.
Yes, Ken. They were rescued by our old fire chief, Kenny Martin, many years ago from an old ambulance that we had here in Roslyn. Kenny turned them over to Henry Singer and Len Jakes as wardens of St. George's Church. And when the church had its 60th anniversary here this last February, the plaques were on display. And of course, being the booster of the museum, I suggested that they should be turned over to the Museum Association.
Well now, I wonder, Gordon, if you could tell us something about this ambulance that they came from. What is the background on that?
Well, yes, Ken, it's rather interesting. Of course, I think the ambulance was purchased here in 1902 as a memorial to the late Father Pat. And it was delivered in Roslyn about October of 1902, and it was arranged that the fire hall would look after it, and that the local mines would be responsible to the livery stables for hired horses. And for many years, the city fire department housed the ambulance and looked after it until motor vehicles came into use in the fire department, and then it was retired from service. For many more years, the ambulance was kept here in an old livery stable. And when it was condemned, the Public Works Department moved the ambulance up into their Public Works garage, and strangely, it's still there, Ken. Pretty bad condition, but it's still there.
In other words, we still have a relic of the past, and we have these plates on display that were on the ambulance. They are now here in the museum. Well, Father Pat, of course, is quite well known, particularly to the old-timers of this district. When did he first come to Roslyn?
Well, my date says that he came here in February of 1896, and he held his first Anglican service in the original Opera House, which is back of the Old Allen Hotel. And shortly after this, he went down to Trail and he held services down there. But he was no stranger to this area, as he had been chaplain to the Lord Bishop of New Westminster, and he made frequent trips through this country on horseback during the preceding 5 years. I think it was about 1898 or 99, he was transferred to Fairview Camp in the Okanagan. And it was late in December of 1901 that he started out for Ireland. And now one of the mysterious parts of his life appears. He was found on the morning of January the 2nd, 1902, walking along the street or along a road in Montreal, and his feet were frozen. He was immediately taken to the hospital in Montreal, and he died there on January the 2nd. Well, of course, the mystery is, why did he get off the train? He was buried buried later in Sackerton, just outside of New Westminster. And it was shortly after that, of course, that this subscription list was started up here in Rosslyn to buy this memorial for him.
Well, it's very interesting to hear that background. I understand that this ambulance that you say is housed in a public works garage is minus a few things.
Oh, yes. As I said, it was in bad shape, state of repair, but there's a couple of coal oil riding lamps, or lights, that appear in some of the old pictures, and they are missing, and we'd certainly like to be able to get those for the museum, or we hope someday to recondition the ambulance and put it back, not on the road, but as a museum piece.
Well, it'd be very interesting, so if anyone knows the whereabouts of the riding lights or a similar set of coal oil riding lights such as did appear on the old ambulance, well, we certainly hope they'll get in touch with you, Gordon. You mentioned that this memorial fund was established and part of the memorial to Father Pat was the ambulance. I imagine there were other things done too, were there?
Yes, Ken. There's a monument down here on the intersection of Washington and Columbia Avenue. It was built, I think, in 1903. And it was erected as a drinking fountain for man and beast. And of course, when the horse went out and the automobile took over, traffic became heavy and the monument was moved off of Columbia Avenue and back onto Washington Street. The old horse drinking trough was removed and part of the original foundation turned around, but otherwise the monument is much the same as when it was first built. And I understand that the start of St. George's Church here was some funds left over from, that is the present St. George's Church, was the start of the funds left over from the memorial.
Well, it's very interesting, Gordon. We understand now that you have one further thing here in the museum as a remembrance of Father Pat.
Yes, Ken, we have Father Pat's watch, and it was presented to us by Mr. W.K. Guire of Trail. And apparently it was given to Mr. Guire's father by Father Pat many years ago. Mr. Guire's father was a surveyor and apparently ran into the Reverend Henry Irvin on many occasions throughout British Columbia.
And it certainly is a real old-timer, as we can see. It's one of these rather thick, almost what you'd call a turnip, I guess.
That's it.
And what does it say here? It's a Waltham.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and as we mentioned, it is quite a heavy timepiece and would be old-fashioned Roman numerals on it. Well, it certainly is very interesting, and it is on display here in the museum, as are these glass plaques that we told you about originally. Well, thank you very much, Gordon German, for giving us some of the background on this recent acquisition to the Rosslyn Museum and for some of the very interesting background on Father Pat.